Howdy, boys and girls. We're doing a quick update of this Samsung can focus. Basically, my search for financing continues because the previous leasing company just didn't want to do it, right? So I contacted the Kenworth financial manager who helped me with the truck, but after 3 days she was unable to find the time to do anything. So I sent her an email. I said, "You're fired." And I apologize for the phone doing this kind of like refocusing thing. I don't know, like I'm sitting at the same distance, but the colors look better than on my LG. Maybe it's because of the hat. But anyway, and so then I approached the local manufacturer over here, Parent Lodestar. The trailer is a bit heavier and actually costs a bit more money than Fontaine, but many people say that the quality is better. But best of all, they were able to hook me up with they have their own financial manager they work with, and she sent me a credit application and it was pretty straightforward. And so now she's working on it. She asked me for some more info, more documents. I sent that, so we'll see what's going on. But we talked on the phone. She was very cheerful, and we joked, and I said, "You have any money left?" She says, "Oh, I got plenty of money left." And another good thing about Parent is that they're willing to give me a loaner. You know, like in the movie The Mask, bring out the loaner. So they have a used IGN trailer, and those are not easy to come by. Like over here in Ontario, I know I can find step deck or flatbed for rent, but low boys, you know, it's not easy. So these guys could give me, I don't know, for free, or probably some kind of a payment will be involved. But they can give me a trailer I can still use, like a 3-axle trailer, but at least I can do a 7-axle, you know, stuff until the new trailer is delivered in February, March. And all they want is the approval from the financial lady and 5,000 Canadian down payment to start the build, right? But of course my preferred trailer would be a Fontaine, and they're ready to go. They're sitting in US, already made, and the specs are not ideal, but they would work for me. It's a 60-ton Fontaine, you know, can take a big flip box for a future Jeep. Can take a Stinger. It's a great trailer. The price is great, actually cheaper than what Parent charges over here. The only issue is that, and I found the company, right, that can bring it in. The same guy who did it with my previous trailer when I got it, when I found it on truckpaper.com. So this guy can do it, but the leasing company doesn't want to deal with 60-ton trailers. They say it's a specialized market. So now we're working with this lady on the Parent trailer, right? And then I'm working with another guy. Actually, I'm meeting him at time now is 10 to 12. He sent me a credit application. I filled it out, and we're meeting for lunch at 1 o'clock today. And I said, "What do you want to meet?" Like, he's in Milton, which is like 40 minutes away. I'm in Cambridge. I said, "I can meet you somewhere halfway, right? I have a car, a super powerful Mustang V6. He says, "Well, let's do," and he gives me a place in Cambridge. He says, "There's a British pub and there's a Tim Hortons. This is whatever works for you." I said, "Well, I hate Tim Hortons, let's do the British pub. So it's at 1 o'clock. We're gonna be meeting at the British pub, and so you can guess what the lunch will be made of. But so this guy works with Rogers Trailers, and he says he has no issues getting me the money for Fontaine or Rogers, and that's what my focus is, trying to get money for that Fontaine so I can drive down there, pick it up, and start working, right? But option number 2 would be to go with the Perrin, because it's a pretty good, very decent, very good trailer. On Fontaine, I like those, you know, the bottom where the neck connects like this, kind of like this setup, right? You know, where the bottom, instead of a pin in the eye, it has this, right? So this is that bar on the trailer, and this is the neck, so it's much easier to connect and disconnect on a non-level ground, and just that works a bit better. And actually that method is also used by Rogers trailers, this kind of like thing, right? Like a pour with this. And JJ Trailer over here uses them as well. I think, I'm not sure about JC. No, JC uses a pin in the eye method. But anyway, and then I call again this guy in US that has this US dealer that has this trailer, and he says, yeah, he still has it. And I said, well, I'm just running into some issues over here. And he gave me a phone number for somebody he worked with from Canada. And this guy works for one of our banks, and he's a credit manager. And we talked on the phone. He sent me a credit application. I filled it out, sent it to him. So he's working on it. But that brings me to the topic of this video. I got an email from this former Fontaine dealer, right, who's ready to import something, but they keep pushing me because they're like friends with the leasing company. They are saying, why are you sure you want a 60 ton? Why don't you get a 55 ton? And I looked at my load board, and I sent him a copy of the load listing, and it was 110,000 pounds from Texas to Ontario. So 110,000 pounds, right? That's pretty much the 55 ton territory. And to my surprise, this guy who's selling trailers for a living, he says, why you cannot do this with a 55 ton trailer? And I started doing this, well, before we had that email conversation, so to speak, before we had that email exchange, I started doing these little options, you know, like basically different combinations, like my old truck, like my Mack with the Fontaine, and then I did Kenworth with the 55 ton Fontaine, and then Kenworth with the 60 ton Perrin that I'm thinking about, which is much heavier, and then Kenworth was 60 ton and single Jeep, and then 55 ton and single Jeep, and then 51 ton 4-axle trailer. And so that's the topic of today's video. This is kind of like sky acrobatics, you know, advanced topic for those people that are interested in how heavy haul works. So if you're not interested in advanced heavy hauling, just stop the video and go drink some beer or something. But basically, what's funny is that you start with a basic truck, right? Like my Mack and Fontaine, and because the front axle was only 14.6 thousand pounds, let's say I would get 14,000 on the front, and then I would get 57 on the pusher and drives, because that truck had 52-inch spacing between the axles, and Peace Bridge on the way to Buffalo does not like that, so they only give you like 57 on the 3 axles. And then in the back on the same quad 4 axles I was getting 72, right? So 14 57, 72. So that's 143 gross, but the empty weight of the Mac with this Fontaine was 49K, which gives us a payload, maximum payload of 94,000 pounds. So the truck was 23,000 pounds, the trailer is 23, and the flip is 3,000 pounds, right? And then, of course, a guy like me, I'm always looking for, you know, how to move towards the top, move heavier loads, make more money. And so from 94K, we go to step 2, which is my second little diagram over here. So I switched trucks. So the same trailer, 55 ton Fontaine with a quad axle, but now this truck has a 20,000 pound front axle, and the spacing between the pusher and drives is now 54 inches, and because of that I'm getting 20 on the front. Again, we're using a combo like Peace Bridge and Maryland DOT, because I often go to Baltimore, right? And Maryland only gives you 72,000 or 18,000 per axle on a quad, like close-knit quad group. And so you get 20, 58, 72, as opposed with the Mac it was 14, 57, 72, right? So now the gross went from 143 to 150, but the empty weight went from 49 to 53, because this truck, like the trailer is the same, right? But the truck is what is it, 4,000 pounds heavier, because it has a big engine. Cummins is much heavier than MP8 I had, 13-liter engine. And the frame, it's double framed. The wheelbase is longer on the Kenworth. The sleeper is bigger, which all adds weight. And the front axle is much bigger, right? And because of that, so from 49 we became 53, but the payload still went up. I don't know if you guys can see it, but yeah, oh, okay. The payload still went up from 94 to 97, right? That's like maximum. 97,000 pounds on a 55-ton trailer. So 97, that's even less than 50 tons, right? So basically you can do this with a 50-ton trailer, and you can actually move more weight because the trailer is lighter. So that's kind of like the paradox I want to draw your attention to. And so now we are considering a Kenworth, my truck, with a 60-ton parent, right? And to start, I just want to get that 60-ton and use the same configuration. So we're getting the same 20 on the steer, we're getting 58 on the pusher and drives, and we're still getting 72 in the back, right? Like, let's say I'm just buy this parent 60-ton, but just because the rating is 60 tons does not mean that somebody will give you more weight than before. The only thing, this trailer is about 4,000 pounds heavier than Fontaine. The truck is the same. So now we're still getting the same 150K gross, but the empty weight went up from 53 to 57. So now with the same setup, I can only do 93K. If you remember, with the Mac, it was 94. So basically we did one step forward, right? When we changed the truck from Mac to Kenworth, I increased my payload from 94 to 97. So now I want to haul more weight. So I changed the trailer to a 60-ton, but all of a sudden with the same configuration now, I can do less than before with the Mac. Like, what the heck? And then we're looking, okay, so definitely you need more axles, right? Like the heavy trailer. So now you need to add more axles, and that's what the story here is that, yeah, when you have a big trailer, you can actually do less with your previous setup. So okay, so now we're adding yeah, so 93, that's it. So now we're adding a Jeep, right? And of course that's the beauty of a 60-ton, is that normally you get a much longer neck, and it can be used with a flip extension, which you need to use a Jeep, right? And like in my case, I want to get the Jeep where you have at least 8 feet of separation from the drive axle, and so that counts as a separate axle group, and you get full 20K on it, you know. And that Jeep is about 22,000 US at least, but it gives you 20K minus the weight of the Jeep, right? And so I did another calculation here. So the same Kenworth with the 60-ton from Perrin, the heavy one, but now I'm adding single Jeep, and we still have quad in the back, right? So now we're running on 9 axles somewhere in US. So I still get 20K on the front, 58 on the pusher and drives, but now we have 20 on the Jeep and the same 72 on the quad. So now our gross is 170 as opposed to 150, right? Because we added another axle. The empty weight is still 57, but now we have to add the weight of the Jeep, which I assume would be, because just the flip axle I know is 3,000, plus there's a neck, so at least 5K. So 170 minus 57 minus 5 is 108, right? So that's a big jump from 93 to 108. Okay, I don't know, can you see that? Yeah, okay. So that was a very useful thing. And then we can still add a spreader, which is a total waste of money, because the spreader in the back will add 8,000 pounds. So instead of 72, they will give me 80,000. But then the spreader weighs at least, I'm guessing, 3,000 pounds. So you only gain 5K. So from 108, you add 5, you're at 113. Okay, so that's pretty much, so you're just a little bit over the 55-ton area, right? And that's where the 60-ton is actually useful, because you see, if you use it, because they're so heavy, if you use it with the same 8 or 7 axles, you actually lose weight, like usable weight. And I looked at the possibility of maybe getting a 55-ton, because since you're very close to the 55-ton capacity, right? And they're overbuilt anyway. I just did another number 5 as I was thinking, you know, like sitting there in the coffee shop and thinking. I did another number 5. Why are we not focusing? Okay, number 5. So instead of a 60-ton, we have a 55-ton trailer, which would be, I'm guessing, easy 24K instead of 27, and a Jeep. So it's the same 170K, but of course you need a special 55-ton with a long neck, which Fontaine, for example, cannot do. It's only custom, because you need like 150, 160 swing radius. So if I can get a special, a custom 55-ton, and because of a lower weight, so 170 minus 54, empty, the same truck but with a lighter trailer, and 5K Jeep, I can get 111, okay? And the 55-ton, it should be much cheaper than a 60-ton, and of course lighter. But I'm not sure about the neck. The neck probably would not be able to use a Jeep. But I mean, just that's the paradox. So yeah, with a 60-ton, you get just a little bit more. But then, of course, you can add a tandem Jeep. You can add a tandem booster in the back. But originally, if you just plan to use them like, you know, I do for now, just with 8 axles, you actually lose weight that you can hold. And then just for fun, I looked at the 51-ton, which weighs 7,000 pounds less than a 60-ton, at least. So I looked into the possibility of just using a Kenworth with no Jeeps, no Stingers, just a 51-ton with 4 axles, quad, right? So you get the same 150K, 2058.72, but now the empty weight is 47 as opposed to 57. And so our payload now is 103,000 pounds. Now remember what it was with my truck and the 60-ton parent? It was, so in my left hand, in this one, we have parent 60-ton. Over here we have 51-ton, and you can see that you can spend, if you only plan to run with 8 axles, you can spend a bunch of money on a 60-ton and you can do 93,000 pounds, or you can spend much less money on a 51-ton and then you can do 103,000 pounds. So basically, of course, that's the maximum, right? You cannot distribute evenly, you know, it's very difficult, but at least, you know, 100,000, you're good for it, you know, because, and all you do is you just have a light trailer with 4 axles in the back, just what I did before, right? But because this trailer is lighter, is actually compared even to Fontaine, because it's a 50-ton. Like this guy's parent Loadstar, they make a 50-ton, and Fontaine makes a 50-ton, which cannot be used with any flip boxes. Like, you cannot do anything about the neck. The neck is 101, that's it. But the rear, they allow you to use 4 axles in the back with a 50 or 51-ton, you know. And I think that's for most people, that's like the best value for the money. But I started saying about the email from the Fontaine dealer when I sent him that email about the 110,000 pound load from Texas, and there was a rate there, a very good rate in US dollars. And I said, and he says, why are you so obsessed about a 60-ton trailer? And I sent him this, and he sends me, why you cannot do this with a 55-ton? Because the weight is only 110 only. And I was a bit surprised by the question, because, you know, I just showed you, right? This is the real life scenario, because you have to take your empty weights into account. And so just because the weight is 110, which seems like, hey, it's okay for a 55-ton trailer, but you cannot do that unless you have a Jeep and a bunch of axles. Like, you need at least 9 axles, right? Like, realistically, where were we close to that amount? Okay, 113 and 111. So these two scenarios over here that I can do kind of like that weight, 110. So it's either a 60-ton, like with my truck we're talking, 60-ton with a single axle Jeep, or a custom 55-ton that can take that single axle Jeep. Now the trick is that, I mentioned this before, but if you buy a 55-ton from Fontaine, the maximum neck you can get is 101, plus the flip box maximum is 23 inches. So the maximum swing radius is 124. Like for this Jeep, special custom Jeep with the long neck, you need at least, I forgot what it is, but I think it was like 152 inches, okay? So basically a Fontaine 55-ton is out. They refuse to customize their neck, but this is kind of like second option after the 51-ton would be to get a 55-ton with a custom neck, you know, because then, yeah, you're much lighter and you can do 110, 111. But this guy asks me about, you know, why you cannot do it with a 55-ton Fontaine, and that's why, because in order to get to the swing radius required for this Jeep, and you need that Jeep for this kind of weight, you need a big neck. And on the Fontaine side, the only trailer that comes close to that after 55-ton is a 60-ton, because 60-ton they give you standard 101 inch swing radius, but you can get an 83 inch flip box. So now you become 184, which is good even for a for a tandem Jeep, you know. And then, you know, since it's good for a tandem Jeep, you start thinking, wait a second, then why am I getting a 55 ton? Because that, now you can get a tandem Jeep in the future and haul more loads. And so now we're back to a 60 ton, you know. But like I said, it's funny how you start looking at these and you think about this, that actually all these trailers can get you comparable results. You know, a 55 ton with a custom long neck, or even a 50 ton, you know, because 60 ton is just too heavy, you know. And so I'm gonna leave you with that it's not easy to choose the proper trailer, and that empty weight is very important, and you have to know how much practical weights you're gonna get from the permit offices, you know, when you run under a permit, oversize. So basically 60 ton only shines when you use it with the extra components, with Jeeps, with Stingers, stuff like that. So if you plan only on running, let's say 8 axles, and you don't want to mess with Jeeps or Stingers, then the best value, I think, would be what? Like without the Jeep, the best value would be 50 ton, right? Because then on 8 axles, because you're so much lighter, but you can still use 8 axles, and you can get 103. But the problem with this is that you will never get that, because this assumes that you have 20,000 on the front axle, right? But most 50 ton trailers come with a very short neck. For example, Fontaine, you cannot get any flip neck extension on a 50 ton. You have to go to 55 ton, you know. So basically, they always push you to buy a more expensive trailer than you actually need. So like a 50 ton would be perfect for most people, if only they could make a longer neck. Because, you know, how do you push 20,000 pounds on the front axle, right? So those are my thoughts. But I'm really leaning for myself towards the 60 ton, this custom, because it's a big neck, you know. I can run it in the back as Tridem, quad, 2+2, 3+1. It seems like a winner. But like I said, don't get too excited about trailer ratings. More important is how many axles you wanna run with, and what the empty weight is. Very important. So thank you very much for watching. I'm just basically waiting for 1 o'clock so we can go and talk to this guy and see what he can do for me in terms of money. Catch you guys later.